Welcome back, traders. Second portion of our show, market movers. We have quite a few market movers to talk about. But let's start with our major Dow component, the cat. The cat is on the prowl.
Cat is on the prowl here, Joel. Trading up almost $3, 111.90 after closing at 109.05, announcing earnings just after 8 o'clock there this morning. And stock has been rallying ever since that report. I'm looking at the charts here. This 110 is a key breakout now. If it's to pull back for whatever reason, I think the 110 area could give you some support now. If we continue to rally, you got to think about this 152-week high, 116.55. That's a ways away for Caterpillar today, but I think over the next couple of days, that might be where the stock is heading to test. 116.55 would be the major resistance.
Okay, well, I have a little bit of a better number for you than that because that's still another $4 away. I use this 113 level, Dennis. We did get back up to 112.65 back earlier last year in the pre-market. We've traded quite a few times up to this 112 90 99 level. I'm not sure if there's any size associated in the book with that 113 level, but that's what I'd keep an eye on the upside. If you're, tempting to take a short in this market or you're getting short early, I think that's going to be your first point of resistance. Of course, coming back down, it's always tricky in these situations to, buy a stock after, when it starts pulling back like this. But I'd use this 110.55 number perhaps as the first stopping point, and then 110, and then also have the expectation to fill the gap at 109.28.
3M reported earnings here as well, Joel. Stock is trading up a little bit here too, 87.37 after closing at 86.48. It's traded as high as 88.5, so it's pulled back in a little bit from when it made that top there just a few minutes ago after the jobs report. Stock, I'm looking at the chart here. If you go back, you just got to go back on my chart here. You go back to July, we had that massive sell-off from 95 all the way down to 85, and we never kind of sniffed back up above the 85, 86 area after that. So you got to think there's going to be a little bit of air in here, just because we had such a massive move down. Maybe it can move back up. I'm looking at this 90 as being major resistance. I don't know if that comes into play, but we bottomed out there in June before that massive sell-off. Then we cut through it straight in July and never sniffed it back. So I think if the stock does go into rally mode, I think 90 could put a pretty decent top on it, at least in the short run. Joel, what do you think?
I think that you always got to use that pre-market high at 88.50, especially the way we repelled off that level since we hit it. Looking back in August, we hit 88.17. So obviously that 88.17 to 88.50 is going to be your major resistance. I'd stay on the long side of this as long as it can hold, 87. That seemed to be the pre-market low. Below 80, expected to come down and fill the gap. 66, which was yesterday's high, and the close right by there at 86.48.
We already talked about AT&T, but we can just mention it once again here. Obviously, reported earnings. We talked about it in the Big Ten show. It has bounced off that 29.5 area. It's trading 29.65 now, so 29.5 still remains major support on that. Anything else you want to add on AT&T?
No, I would just keep an eye on that. I mean, it's trading quite a bit of volume there. It's hit it twice in the pre-market and bounced. So it looks like it's finding a range here from 29.50 to 29.70. Interestingly, that 29.70 area were a couple bottoms. So you got some good numbers here to trade in ATT today.
Netflix, Joel, what do you think about this one? Comes out last night, blows the number away. 95.04 is where it closes, trading 113 a quarter. It's up 18 points, up over 19% right now. This stock is absolutely flying here. We broke down, if you go back to September, we obviously had a parabolic move down from early September from the 210 area. But we bottomed at 125 and we hung out there for about a week and a half. Do you remember that, Joel? Hanging out there
Yep.
around that 125, and then eventually we took that number out and we broke down from there. I'm wondering, like, we're at 113 now. I don't know if it comes into play today, but I'm wondering if eventually that's where it wants to go and test, is that 125 area. Maybe Joel's got some numbers closer for you short-term traders, but for you swing traders, keep that 125 number in mind as some decent resistance for this one.
Yeah, I like this one. I mean, the analysts were, they were bearish all the way, they were bullish all the way down, and then it starts to turn around, and, now you get these guys that think it's never going to rally again. I don't even know why they put these guys on. But what the numbers are saying, what the numbers are indicating is this thing is obviously trying to take back some of the ground last year. Looking at the pre-market activity, we did hit a high at 115.36. We pulled back from that area a little bit, so I use that as your first stopping point. Really seems to be finding a home here at 112 as far as support. Below 112, you got quite a gap to fill down, to get into yesterday's range, which is 95. It still looks though there's really a gap area all the way up to 120. That was back in October when it had one of its disappointing earnings announcements. So there's a gap all the way up to 120.28. So after this 115.66 level, I'm looking for 120.28.
Ford actually is trading up a little bit here this morning, Joel. They came out with their 2012 margin. Or their or they came out with their 2012 margin outlook is what they came out with. I can't talk here this morning. $13 is still showing me some significant size here in New York. With that, liquidity obviously becomes active at 9:30. I wonder if it's going to struggle to open over 13. It's traded a ton though. I think if it does open at 13, it actually may be a buying opportunity. Hard to say though, but it's 13.06 right now is where it's trading, so it is trading above that 13. But I still think that 13 number is pretty big, and it wouldn't surprise me if it struggled to open over 13. It does take out that 13, then it can start moving higher. But looking a little bit stronger this morning is Ford, Joel.
Yeah, it's hard with a stock like this, and then the amount of size that it trades. I would keep an eye, of course, on that size at 13, as well as the pre-market high at 13.09. So if you are scooping things up and you're going into those sellers at 13, expect some minor resistance at 13.09. Coming back on the downside, yesterday's high was 12.98, so really not much of a gap to fill. So use that 13 area as a swing number. Once if we could get above and hold this 13 level, there's really not a lot that it's not saying it's going to 14 today, but as far as looking at the charts, there's really not a lot of resistance until you get above the 14 level, 14.13 to 14.22, which would be one heck of a move for Ford.
Colgate, which is symbol CL, reported earnings here this morning as well, Joel. The stock has kind of actually been pretty weak. We've been talking about money moving out of the defensive names and into some more risky names. Well, it did have a pretty decent run up into the earnings report. It had a good bounce yesterday if we're looking at the chart here on the Fed. And now actually it's trading down 44 cents on the report, trading at $89 after closing at $89.44. But it kind of a little bit wild here the last few sessions, for Colgate. It's usually a lower beta stock, but a week and a half ago we were trading at 91, trade all the way down to almost 87, bounced up, got into that 89.44. I think it gets into this $90 area. You'd see some resistance kicking around there. But only a couple hundred shares to report here, so it's really hard to tell where it's going to open, just based on 200 shares trading at 89. So there's not a lot of pre-market action to report here, but let's have Joel give us a technical on it.
Yeah, I mean, not a real heavily traded issue here. So, the wait to see where the size comes in. Major resistance though up at this 90-50 level. It topped out there a couple times earlier in the month. Coming back on the downside, 87.92, which was yesterday's low. Let's call it 88 support, and pretty much used yesterday's range. 89.59, which was yesterday's high, with the close right up there with resistance. And earnings do come out in a stock, and it doesn't move, wildly right off the number. That when you go to, the previous day's numbers, they're pretty good parameters as far as what the stock's going to do for the day.
Teradyne, which is another tech company, TER. This is an interesting chart here, Joel. This stock has taken off here in the pre-market. Actually, after hours last night is when it reported. It started taking off after hours, continuing to move up in the pre-market. 17 is where it was going to last night. It's taking that area out. And above 17, you got this big gap to fill. If you look back in May on a big down day, we went from like 18.25 all the way down to 17 that day. I think that might have been on an earnings report too, if I'm remembering correctly. You wonder if it can fill that gap today from 17 up to over 18. What do you think, Joel?
I think as long as we stay above the 17.20 level, seems to be pretty good consolidation there. I think this stock is still good to go to the upside. Keep an eye on this on 17. Well, they're showing me a couple prints up here at 17. So keep a real close eye on that 17.95 to 18 level. If you're looking for some resistance area. So 17 to 18 could be the range in Teradyne today.
Bristol Myers BMY reporting here earnings as well. Joel, stock is trading up a little bit, 33.08, 33.10. So it's up 40 cents after closing at 32.70. Lower beta stock. These big pharmaceutical companies don't typically move around a heck of a lot. But it is getting a little lift off these earnings. If it starts to go into rally mode and really start to take off, this 34 number is huge on the stock. I know that's 90 cents away from here, so I'm not sure if that's going to come into play. If it breaks down, I'd use yesterday's low, 32.28 as support. What do you think on BMY, Joel?
Well, you had four tops there, Dennis. Previous 4 days between the 32.56 and 32.82 level, and we're trading smartly above that. So I'd use that 32.80 area as major support. And then I'm looking at the high here on January 19th at 33.61. Which is a little bit ahead of that $34 level. So I'd keep an eye on 33.61 as one stopping point, and then the 33.92, which was the high on the 18th.
Lots of earnings to talk about. SanDisk reported. There's I saw a couple of your educational stocks, DV and ESI. I don't know if they reported yet, but they're due to report. Juniper and Starbucks are after the bell. So we're right in the middle of earnings season. We can't obviously talk about them all. We just don't have enough time. But, keep an eye on your earnings calendars there. Make sure if you're trading a stock, if it's had earnings or not. Anything you wanted to close with here, Joel?
No, just slow melt up here in the S&Ps. Approached 1327 high, approaching some major resistance here at 1329, and our daily target of 1331 and a quarter. That's our show for today, folks. We'll be back with you on Friday.